Welcome Golfin fans to this evening's Golfin Facebook Live special, during which we are going to be focusing on strength and conditioning, or SNC, with our guest Laura Wake. And Laura is currently the Head of Athlete Development for the Derbyshire Institute of Sport and was a Commonwealth athlete running in the 400-metre hurdles. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sam Carr and I am one of the resident golfing coaches, providing coaching content and of course working with golfing clients all over the world. It was a really fantastic interview that I actually recorded earlier on today with Laura. Over the past few weeks, through our social media promotions, we've obviously told you that Laura was coming on and we asked for you to send in your questions, which quite a number of you did, so thank you for doing that. And we picked out key themes and some of the best questions to ask Laura, and we came up with 9 core questions that we sent across to her, and she answered fantastically well. There are some absolute golden nuggets in this interview with Laura, which will definitely help your golf. And in fact, from my perspective, she changed the way I viewed S&C, in particular the benefits S&C can have after we've played golf. I always thought of S&C about preparation and our performance during, but actually how it can help us after we've played golf. So stay tuned, watch the interview. I'm live now and I will be live throughout, so please feel free to send in your comments. Don't forget to like this broadcast as well and share it out to your friends, family and other golfers as well, who I'm sure would like to know more about S&C and the benefits that it can bring to their game. So without further ado, I will jump straight into the interview with Laura Wake. Enjoy golfing fans, and I will see you after. So here we are, golfing fans. We are in the interview with Laura Wake. Laura, you can now see her on this side, on screen. So welcome, Laura, to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks a lot for having me. My background is actually in track and field athletics, so golf's a little bit of a different world for me, but
it's for most people.
Yeah. So track and field athletics has kind of brought me along to being an S&C coach. So I'm now going to be the kind of head of athlete development at the Derbyshire Institute of Sport. So new world all along. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that role involve, sort of specifically?
Yep, so primarily my kind of main role with that kind of athlete development is the strength and conditioning side. So at the Derbyshire Institute of Sport, we work with athletes of all ages and of all ranges across all sports. We just want to support anyone and everyone that wants to become a champion, whether that's a kind of county champion or just a competition champion, or whether they want to become national, international or Olympic champion. We've kind of worked with all of them across the board and all ages. So that's what we kind of do at the Derbyshire Institute of Sport. We support young and old athletes trying to kind of follow their dreams.
Because a few weeks ago we spoke with Dr. Phil Clark, and obviously he's involved as well. And I think one of the things that I never actually asked him was, is the Derbyshire Institute of Sport, is it relatively new?
It's actually been around. It was kind of created as a legacy program after the 2012 Olympics. And I came in 2017, so a few years back now, where they just kind of started snowballing this program, where they started off in 2012 going, right, okay, Derbyshire, we want to be that. Derbyshire's got all of these Olympic champions. We want to be the biggest county with all these Olympic champions. So that's where they started. And it's just kind of grown and grown from there. And every single Olympics or Commonwealth Games that has come around, Derbyshire has had more and more athletes attending and more athletes winning medals and winning competitions and actually succeeding. So it's massively succeeding, the program, and it's just going from strength to strength. And now obviously we have a full support team. Obviously you mentioned Phil is psychology. We have nutrition. We kind of have lifestyle support and all of that kind of thing as well. So we've got the kind of full works.
See, that's interesting as a legacy project, because we know there was a lot of talk, wasn't there, about the legacy out the back of the London Olympics and what have you. And there was an argument about, does that legacy really exist? Are there venues that are sat empty and all that kind of stuff? But obviously from the Derbyshire Institute of Sport, there is a very strong legacy that's there, and arguably a successful one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. Everyone has kind of split off and done their own little things. Obviously, there's a lot of focus on London and what was done with the venues and all the facilities and all of the hype at the time. But I think it did massively inspire so many people to really see where they can get to. And we've certainly found that there's so many athletes out there that want the support and they want some help and they want some guidance, but there's not very many places for them to turn to unless you are on one of the kind of world-class performance programs. That support isn't very readily available, so we're trying to reach out and get as many people as we can, and actually bring them on that journey, because there's so much to be gained from that kind of journey in sport. It can do so much for you from every aspect.
It's awesome. It's an awesome project that you guys are involved with. So what we've done, Laura, as you know, when we've been in touch over the past week or so, couple of weeks, a few of the Golfin fans, followers on Instagram, and I've also had some personal messages, have sent in some questions. So as you know, I've shared those questions for you. So we've got 9 questions, and we're going to try and get through them all. We'll see where the conversations go. And for the viewers watching, I'm going to flash up the questions on the screen as we go through them. So we might as well get stuck straight into it, really. Question 1. It's a question that was asked by a few people, actually. I think it's a really intriguing one. So we're gonna ask you to indulge a little bit and tell us about your experiences. And that question 1 is, what was it like to compete at the Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, I love being asked this question, because I think this is where my whole career kind of snowballed out of, really, is my sporting background and my love of competing, my love of sport. And as a kid, I was okay at sport. I was, fairly athletic, so I could kind of get by in all the sports teams. And then eventually athletics, I just kind of took off at it, and I was like, actually, I'm all right at this. And yeah, obviously, kind of going through the age groups and everything else, I was getting selected for more teams, and which was a little bit touch and go as well. I actually only ended up being else couldn't go, so it was really kind of lucky that I did get that space. And obviously a home Commonwealth Games as well, even better. So it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it was my first experience of a multi-sport event. I mean, I'd been to athletics European events and world events before, but nothing where it had been multi-sports, and you just can't really explain that, how big it is when you're there. When you're in the athlete village, when you're kind of walking around and you're speaking to people in the England team who are from all different sports, but everyone there is just so friendly. Everyone's so like-minded in terms of wanting to meet new people. What's your experience like in sport, and how can I learn from you? Can I take something that that you find useful and take that into my competition? So from that perspective, the environment and the feel of it was just something else. It's like being on a million holidays all at once. And and then the actual kind of the competition itself, the nerves, everyone gets nerves, and it's something someone a long time ago once told me, actually, it's not nerves, it's excitement. It's doing what you love, and relish it and enjoy it. So stepping out in front of all those people, and the noise and the track and everything was just absolutely fantastic. And all that adrenaline just makes you run harder than ever. And yeah, it was an absolutely brilliant experience. I did pretty well. I obviously didn't get through to the final, didn't win any medals, but for me, I was pretty happy, and I put out a very good performance on the day, which I suppose is all anyone can ask for, really, is do what you can on the day and enjoy it.
And it was the 400 meters, your event.
400-meter hurdles. So just added a little bonus in there of the hurdles to get by.
I think for mortals like myself, I think I look at the hurdles and I think, how do you just get over a hurdle full stop? But how do you do it at the pace? I guess it's just something you've developed over the years. But is it something that you're conscious of when you're running?
Yeah, absolutely. There's always something to be thinking about in the 400-meter hurdles. I only started the 400-meter hurdles quite late. I did just do the 400-meter flat races, and then I just decided to go a little bit mad and add the hurdles in as well. So there's always something to focus on. That's the thing I quite liked about it. You've got 35 meters between the hurdles, and that 35 meters you've got to think, get ready for this next hurdle and take it well. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of hitting hurdles and learning how much it hurts. Yeah. That's always a good learning point.
Do you have an overarching a memory, something that sticks with you from that event? Being at the Commonwealth Games, I mean, just is there something that you really carry with you?
Do you know what? I think it's seeing my family, afterwards. You know, you're kind of walking around the stadium, and you're walking kind of up through the stand and through the crowds. And I mean, there's all these kids there. They have no idea who you are, but because you're in kit, they're going, "Oh, can I have your photo? You know, can I stand and have my photo with you?" So you get that lovely kind of feeling of, you know, all these young kids there are kind of hopefully being inspired by you. And then, you know, I just saw my family, my nieces, and my mum and dad, and you know, it's just that seeing them all come up there and with their faces painted and everything. It's just, you know, it's just amazing, that sort of feeling.
I can only imagine that. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
What's it like stepping out into an arena so full of people? It's something that, you know, hardly any of us, you know, and none of us really will ever do it. You've done it. What's it like? Do you hear it? Do you feel it? What's it like?
Yeah, all of that. You hear it, you feel it, and I think the overriding thing that I remember walking out is feeling just a massive surge of energy, adrenaline and energy in my body, and I just thought, wow, like I can use this, like, you know, it's going to drive me. So yeah, it was brilliant, kind of walking out and feeling that, but then at the same time you've kind of got to go, okay, I've got a job to do here, you know, focus on how my start's going to look. Am I going to get over the first hurdle? You know, you don't want to mess up at the same time. But yeah, the noise was just incredible. It just runs through your body. It really does. Yeah.
How long did it take for you to come down from it? Was it an instant crash, or was it days or weeks, or what was the sort of
it kind of, yeah, it kind of comes and goes. Really, like, obviously you've got the instant straight after the competition. You know, you look at your results, and it would have been nice to make the final. Obviously you get that little bit of a, I want to go and do it again, and but you know, I've just missed out on the chance. And you have a bit of a come down then. But then, you know, you're back in the village, you've got that buzz about the place again. And I think the biggest kind of come down is once it's all over, you travel home, and the kind of 2 or 3 days after, when you're like, okay, there's no one to go to breakfast with, or there's no one to go and sit in the kind of athlete lounges with, or, you know, I can't go to the track and just go and watch some racing. I can't go and watch the swimming. I can't go and just find someone to talk to. And yeah, you do get that kind of competition blues, I suppose it is, the few days afterwards. So it does take you a while to adjust back in, but I think everyone, you know, sporting wise, you have a major competition, you do have a 2-3 weeks where you kind of come back and just, you know, take a bit of time and kind of get ready to build back up into another training block again. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I mean, I think we could probably talk to you about that for the entire interview, but obviously we've got the other questions, but that's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for your insight on that. Right. S&C, strength and conditioning questions. So one of the things we try to do with these, the Golfin Facebook Live series, is go back to the ABCs of knowledge, because there's so much in the world of sport, especially in the world of golf, but in the world of sport in general, there's so much jargon thrown around, complicated words, stuff that we see, but what do they actually mean? So question 2, and it did come in a couple of times, what is S&C, and is it important?
Yeah, I mean, it gets asked a lot, exactly as you say with golf, same with S&C. There's a lot of kind of, you see a lot of these big kind of Instagram gurus and all the rest of it that are kind of floating around, and it's just kind of knowing what is it and why do I need to use it. And for me, S&C is simply the tools and the processes that can help you do your sport for longer, or help you improve your performance at sport. Just basically keep you doing what you love. And that can come in a massive variety of forms as well. So the main purpose of what I try to do with athletes is keep them doing their technical sessions. So if I had a golfer come in, you know, how do we keep you getting back out there day after day without kind of breaking down in your body, and trying to get those kind of little performance gains where we can. So it's all on a very kind of individual basis, and particularly something that we do at the Derby Institute of Sport is we actually look at everyone as an individual, regardless of them all being swimmers or all being a badminton player. We go, okay, how does your body move? What does your body need? How do we best support you? So, for example, some of the things that we do use in strength and conditioning, particularly, we can do kind of end stage rehab work where we start to integrate back into normal training. So that's one kind of key area that we use. Another one potentially is flexibility and mobility. A nice kind of golf example might be someone who's not got enough kind of thoracic rotation, spinal rotation, or hip mobility rotation. So actually we need to spend a bit of time loosening off those muscles and getting a little bit of strength in that real end ranges of position to be able to, better the performance when you get out there. So that's some examples. I suppose another example from a kind of more team sport is maybe a fitness element. We take the guys out running and do running sessions with them to kind of build up their kind of cardiovascular systems. So it's basically a massive toolbox of things that you can dip in and out of that are going to keep you playing for longer or slightly improve that performance where we can.
Mm-hmm. So it is very important then.
I think so, yes. I think if you find the right area of S&C for you, it can be massively important. And I think, it is all about keeping you doing what you love. So, if that's the ultimate goal of what you're doing, whether you're a high performer or just a weekend performer and you want to go out on the weekends and enjoy it every week, you want to be out there. You don't want to be on a physio bed or, elsewhere. That's where you want to be. So that's the purpose of what we do. And that's why, to me, it's very important that everyone kind of has an understanding of it and some support with it as well.
Okay, fantastic. Third question, what sort of S&C work are young athletes doing these days? So are there any quirky things that are going on, or what is there? Well, I mean, you mentioned that it's individual. I was going to say, is there a standard approach? But I'm guessing it, as you just mentioned, it is totally individual to the person.
Yeah, it's quite a tough one to answer, because it would be so nice to say to everyone, here's 3 or 4 things, this is what you do and that's it, that'll make you better, that'll be great. And it would make my job a lot easier. It would be great if we could do that. But I think, there's always going to be kind of novel ideas, and there'll be kind of new training protocols that people kind of shout about, but actually a lot of it is just recycled stuff from years and years ago, and it's just actually finding athletes that it works with. I think that's the biggest thing, is figuring out your athlete. You kind of build up a relationship with them, you find out what they do and they don't like. And so yeah, for me with the young athletes, I think it's massively kind of mastering the basics. We spend a lot of time actually going, can you kind of simply stand on 1 foot? Can you stand on 2 feet quite well and balance yourself and coordinate your body? And particularly for youngsters, I suppose coordination is a big one that we work on, especially when we've got kind of growing athletes who have got kind of arms and legs all over the place. It's actually, their coordination gets thrown off quite a lot as they're growing. I don't know whether you get kind of young golfers must go through a similar sort of phase, I guess.
Well, I was just going to ask, do you find in general that they sort of, I don't know how to put it, the level of coordination in young athletes is probably not as good as it should be? I.e., are they doing enough of that sort of work in sort of general education environments to help their physical development? I mean, or do they come to you and you're kind of going, we've got a lot of work to do here?
Yeah, it's a really good question, I think. I think there's a little bit of a mixture of both. I think we see some athletes who play about 5 or 6 different sports and they're very, very coordinated and it's very, very good. Or we get kind of some athletes who have just done kind of one sport and obviously don't get anything else through school, who actually, they might be very good with a racket in their hand, but as soon as you put a ball at their feet or try and say, okay, I want you to hop on this specific marker, they can't do it and they can't control their feet to land where they want to. So there's definitely a lot of coordination based work that youngsters could be doing that I think, isn't necessarily always built into school programs. I think, PE is quite typically game based. They go and play football or they go and play hockey, but they don't necessarily learn, simple things around, hopping and balancing and, going from one side to the other, left and right hand, kind of juggling based skills and things like that. Some simple things that actually, we get kind of, well, we get adults. I mean, not even kids that we're talking about here. We get adults that sometimes can't do things like that and can't coordinate a like left right arm and leg movements and things like that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think a nice example of it is running drills. Because obviously my background being running, I use a lot of running drills to challenge athletes and things like this, and say, rather than doing left leg, right arm, we try and do right leg, right arm, and things like that. And actually,
I'm lost already.
Yeah, it's things like either going across the body or on the same side of the body, and it's actually, you start to see their brains really switching on and working. Everything slows down for them to try and figure it out as they go. And I mean, like I said, like even adults, you get adults that go through that phase as well of actually, I've not really had to think about this before. Everything, you just kind of go on autopilot a little bit. So I think that's probably our biggest one, is we do, mastering those basics of actually, simple coordination patterns, simple body movement patterns, all the mobility work, all the basics that you need to be able to move on to something in the kind of as a foundation phase for the later years, I guess.
Okay, fantastic. Next question, moving into, I guess, a little bit more golf related, but how can the average club golfer use S&C to help their game? So when I say average club golfer, generally, don't mean to cause any offense to anyone out there, the average club golfer is generally a male, generally someone who's a little bit older, usually around the sort of 50 years of age mark. That would be the average typical club golfer. So is S&C something they can access, they can use, and how could it help them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes back to that point of actually understanding who you are, and obviously everyone knows themselves best. You know how you move. You know those areas when you're out on a course, for example, something starts to feel a little bit tight, a little bit sore. You know that one area that starts to get tired towards the kind of end of the round, or wherever you get to on the course. If you can pick up on some of those areas and what your body's telling you, you can start to build an S&C program for yourself. It's simple things, again, coming back to mastering the basics. If you know that, your shoulders and your back or everything feels a little bit uncomfortable the next day, for example, have a look at some basic mobility around those shoulders, some basic strength, actually just body weight work that you can kind of have a go at to kind of pick on those niche areas for yourself, that you might be able to kind of find something that works for you.
Okay, that's it. Because in my head, my prejudgment was that we can use S&C sort of post-event to create a performance gain during an event. But actually, if we talk about the average golfers I've just described, it can really help them. Sorry, I said post, I meant pre-event, then during the event. But it actually can really help them post, can't it? From reducing pain or back issues that they get after they've played golf. Which is a really common issue with club golf. Actually, I just thought about it pre-game of golf and then during game of golf. I hadn't thought about it post.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just those different little aspects of it. Obviously, a warm up is a massive component to everyone, isn't it? But I think on the long term is actually just listening to your body, picking up on those areas, like you're saying. If everyone gets a little bit stiff in their backs and a little bit, if you feel it's your hips, maybe, for example, or whatever that area is, spend a bit of time, on a regular basis, just chipping away at it. Trying to get that little bit more mobility or that little bit more strength, or even just basic control. Can you control your shoulder in all the directions that it needs to move? So yeah, absolutely, there's a place for it kind of before, during and afterwards. So yeah.
And at the end of the day, from a golf perspective, we want to try and help people play the game for as long as they can, from a participation perspective. So reducing pain levels is really important, isn't it? So I think I always talk about golden nuggets during these interviews, and there's been a couple already, but that one really sticks out for me. So golfers, we need to think of S&C about post game as well. And I know a few of them because I work with a couple of them, and I know them anyway, the people that'll be watching who suffer with back issues, knee issues, all sorts of things. So S&C guys.
So it is, people, your body. So, when you know that area, whatever your problem area is, that's where your go-to is for your S&C work. That's your starting point. Master the basics of that movement pattern, whatever it is.
Where can they get information from? I'm going off piece now, but...
It's a tricky one because there's so much out there, and it's trying to figure out what is kind of trustworthy and what is kind of useful, and what is just a lot of noise, and kind of is trying to see through that. I think when you're kind of looking for things like that, obviously, we do have an option to support people on through the Derbyshire Institute of Sport. So if people want that kind of more bespoke service, that's something we have. But I suppose if you're just looking kind of generally kind of trawling through the internet, I guess what I'd try and look for is the simple stuff. Anyone who's posting body weight exercises, they're probably ones who know what they're kind of looking for, because that's your starting point. You need to control your body weight to start with before you start adding weights, before you start adding Swiss balls or anything else crazy. Just, what can you do with your body? And I think most people will know what, like you said, if someone's getting knee trouble, let's work on a basic squat, a 2-footed body weight squat. Can we get that feeling really nice and really comfortable? And then let's look at maybe starting to move into a lunge, and then we kind of progress onto the single leg. So we kind of have that progression from a 2-footed, nice stable exercise to a staggered stance with that lunge, and then onto a single leg. And I think a lot of the time it is just the basics. People know a press up, people know a pull up. It's not kind of groundbreaking things they need to look at. It's just actually, some simple advice on those movement patterns and working through that. And if you need to break it down into something more simple, just look for the body weight exercises that link into some of those movement patterns.
And you mentioned that people could come and see you guys as well if they wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's we've set up kind of various different programs, and we have got an online one this year for the first time, with kind of obviously all the COVID online work going on. We've figured it out, and we're still kind of getting there with how it works, but we're finding that actually we've got a lot of success with it as well. Some of our athletes are really liking it, and it's really working for them, and even coaching over online. I mean, you've kind of had a bit more experience of that. By the sounds of it, but we're starting to realize actually, we can still get that nice kind of personal coaching touch, and we can still make a big difference in athletes kind of conditioning. So it is working. So if you wanted to look at more, the website has got a lot of information on, so that would be a nice place to see some more of you golfers.
And would that just be DerbyInstituteofSport.com or something along those lines, would it?
Yeah, DerbyshireInstituteofSport.co.uk.
.co.uk. Okay, great. Yeah. I guess we've kind of touched on this question 5, but can S&C help prevent injury? So I suppose it's specifically around preventing injury.
Yeah, it definitely can. I don't really work on my own that much. We have a great physio here who I am constantly kind of talking to about it, all of our athletes. Even when they're not injured, we have a lot of conversations exactly on that injury prevention side. He kind of screens them and flags up areas that he goes, oh, this looks fine for now, but it could become a problem if we don't kind of address it. So that's a lot of what our conversations are, and a lot of that is around asymmetry. So sports that use one side of the body a lot more than the other might ring some bells for you guys. Obviously, you're very kind of asymmetrical with it. With golf, it's all swinging in one direction, very, very fast and very explosively. So we know that there's that kind of one-sidedness to golf, which is an injury risk, which is something that we try and work on keeping a nice balance, that we don't go too far into that one kind of directional movement. And then the other thing is that kind of repetitive movement as well. How many times do you swing a golf club? It's a lot. So it'd be looking at all the muscles that you use when you're actually doing that, and making sure that, one, you're kind of using the right muscles, which is where your kind of technical expertise comes in. Is this person technically moving well to use the right muscles? And if they're not, are they overloading an area that actually might cause a problem in further down the line? Is it going to kind of overload a muscle that's not strong enough to do it, for example, which is where we come in and actually strengthen up the right muscles so that they can use those muscles, potentially do a bit of mobility so they can get in the right positions to use the power that they've got and things like that. So there's a lot of injury prevention work that we can do alongside a nice physio.
Yeah. So golfers, let's think. So I just think it's really important from a golf perspective, because I think most golfers will interpret S&C as I've said before, sort of in the gym or whatever before the benefits, working on it before, so you get benefits during the game. But I say what I'm picking up, guys, is that there's a lot S&C can do for you afterwards. So it will help you reduce injury, it will help you reduce aches and pains. Yes, it will help you play better golf, but it's going to help your health and well-being, keep you playing longer, get rid of the niggles, get rid of the back pain, which will help you play better, but it will help you play longer as well. I think that's really important. And it's probably a bit of a, would I be right in saying, do you think there's a stigma attached to S&C? That S&C is sort of in the gym, like pumping iron, and it might be, but might not be dependent on the individual, right?
Yeah, it absolutely massively. It has got a stigma around it, and for those that aren't kind of in that S&C world, and I mean, even for me, it's quite unusual to have female S&C coaches. It's still like, there's not very many of us, so it is a bit more of a kind of man's world of these kind of big guys lifting weights. But actually, it covers absolutely anything. And to be honest, you can do S&C without a gym. You don't need a gym to do it. It's just basic conditioning of your body. So if you get nice and strong doing all of your own body weight work, that is just as good, if that's the right thing for you, as going in the gym and lifting weights. Obviously, what you guys are lifting in terms of your sport, it's not massively heavy. I mean, golf clubs aren't excessively, 50 odd kilos, 60 kilos or anything like that, but you have to move it very, very fast and very, very explosively. So actually, doing some more body weight stuff, conditioning those little muscles, like we said, to stop the kind of repetitive injuries or things like that. But then also doing some speedy stuff as well, just body weight, quick movements to try and increase that speed and get that nice little snappy movements that's hopefully going to help improve your game. So there's a whole range of stuff that you can do for S&C. And I think you hit the nail on the head really with saying that it improves health and all round, well-being really. There's so many areas to it. It's just understanding how it works best for you and what it can do for you and how to tap into that.
All right. Awesome. Next question. What makes a good warm-up routine?
So this one, I think it's this is probably one of the easier questions to answer, I think, when I read this one, because I think I have kind of a go-to in my head of, building a warm-up for someone is, we go through a set kind of process. And the first process for me, no matter what the sport is kind of identifying the movement patterns that we're going to be doing. So for golf, you'll have your set movement patterns. You'll know, these are the areas that I need to warm up. And once you know those areas, we kind of run through the process of mobilizing the joints. So all of the joints that are going to be working, we want to mobilize them somehow. And then there's different tools that you can use to do that mobilization, depending on the person and depending on which kind of movement they respond to. So for example, with that mobilization, we can use foam rollers. I'm sure everyone's seen foam rollers and various different tools that you can do for self-massage. Absolutely. Yeah, so you've got all these kind of funky little tools now, haven't you, as well, for foam rollers, little kind of balls with spikes on and all sorts. So that's one tool that you can use to mobilize. Another one is static stretching. Another one is slightly more active stretching, but that's kind of what we generally class as mobilization, is where we're focusing on a key joint area and trying to increase the range of motion that we've got there. So if you've got a little bit of a jammy shoulder that gets a little bit stuck and you want to loosen it off, that's your kind of go-to. Mobilize it, get the joint moving, first port of call. Once we've done that, we'll then move on to some activation work, which is the same sort of thing, same muscle groups and things that we want to be looking at, but we want to start to switch all those muscles on. We want to get them switching on and switching off and being able to control them as well. So kind of looking at kind of contracting muscles, basically. So that's the next step. And again, that potentially is quite isolated. We look at just the shoulder, just the hips, or just the torso in terms of rotation, potentially. So we activate and we start to get those muscles moving. And then the last one comes back to what we were talking about earlier, and coordination and linking patterns together. So once you've loosened off that shoulder, got a little bit of rotation in the spine, actually, can we link everything together? Can we go through some swing patterns, for example, that works as a kind of integrated movement that we finish off our warm-ups with? Or potentially, a lunge with a rotation, for example, something that's going to use the whole body and just link a little bit of coordination together, getting your body ready in terms of linking the leg power into upper body power, and transferring those kind of movements. So that's my kind of go-to process for warm-ups, is mobilize the joint, activate some muscles around it, and then link that into a whole body movement pattern.
And is a warm-up something that you would, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but something that you would recommend anybody does before sort of participating in sport?
Yeah, I think it probably is. I think that it's not just from the physical benefits either as well. So I think there's kind of like the psychological benefits of it, where actually, you're putting yourself in a nice headspace. And even for those that aren't looking to perform really, really well, for those of your guys that love golf just to chill out and just to enjoy it and for the love of the game, You want to leave your everything that's happened at home at home. So, giving yourself that, it doesn't have to be long. 10-15 minutes is, you can get a good warm up done in 10-15 minutes, but it gives you that space just to switch off from everything else that's happened and gone, okay, I'm in the zone. Sport, I can enjoy this now. I'm not bringing anything with me. So I think, yes, it's I'd always like to do it. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Which is more important? I thought this was quite an interesting question. Which is more important, efficiency or power?
Yeah, I think it is an interesting question. I think a lot of athletes kind of question, that balance between strength and conditioning. And I think this is a similar sort of question in terms of, is it better for me just to get really, really strong, or is it better for me to be really coordinated and really balanced and all of that kind of stuff? And I think they go hand in hand, really. I think if you build on your efficiency, your power can get a lot better, because you don't have to get stronger, you don't have to get faster, but you can just link the movement patterns and transfer those forces more efficiently. So the theory is that, if you link the forces nicely, then, your output's going to be better as well. So I think they do go hand in hand. There is certainly value in also strength training and power training. And sometimes actually people just need to get stronger. They're just too weak. And actually, they look all over the place, but they're not necessarily inefficient. They're just weak. So it's coming back to that kind of, working out who your athlete is. But I think, they definitely go hand in hand. And I think the kind of principle in my head that kind of overrides anything is the concept that you can't shoot a cannon out of a canoe. If you can kind of envision that, if you've got a really unstable canoe down here. So if you've got all the power in the world, it's not going to go anywhere if you've not got that foundation to explode off of. So that's always stuck with me. It's not my words. I've learned that from someone much wiser, but it's always stuck with me, that expression, and I can picture it so clearly. And I see it in athletes as well, and I think, I've got a real canoe here that's just all over the place. need to build some foundation.
I know a few canoes as well, actually. I'm not going to name names, but
But it's quite nice when the athletes don't know the expression and you just, start calling them a canoe. They've got to figure it out.
That one's going to stick. That one's going to stick.
So that's in my head. That's where I start with athletes is build some foundations to let them use their power.
That's a good quote. I like that. Okay, a very golf specific one. So the US PGA Tour player Bryson DeChambeau, he's been in the media a lot over the past few months. He's really, really bulked up. He's hitting the ball miles, absolutely miles. But there's been a big body change. So what's your opinion on the sort of body change that he's gone through?
Yeah, so I think we spoke earlier, and I said it was one of my comments on golf is that there does seem to be a big kind of range of body shapes and sizes in golf. There's not necessarily the taller the better, the shorter the better, and things like that. So there is a big range, and I think it varies from sport to sport. But for golf, I think so long as the functionality is still there, I think body size you can kind of get away with whatever shape or size you are. I think it all comes down to that functionality. I think very often when you get athletes that bulk up very, very quickly, they really tighten up, and they can't really move that well anymore. And you see that quite a lot in. I'm going to use athletics because it's obviously my go-to, and I know it. And you see these athletes that bulk up and get very, very heavy and strong. But actually they just get slow. They've built all of this strength and they're so strong, but they can't unleash it quick enough. So it's just striking that balance. And obviously it sounds like he's done it very successfully, and he's managed to put that size and that strength on, and is carrying that through into a good level of functionality as well. So it is that striking that balance. Now, obviously you can never say it will work for everyone, but there'll be athletes that might need to go a little bit bigger and that they'll have that improvement, but likewise there'll be some the other way that actually need to come down a little bit.
Does that sort of decision, bulking up, and does that reduce longevity? If longevity in sport, if I like Bryson DeChambeau, he bulked up. Obviously, he must have done it in the right way. He's still, it appears to be very much in control, yet the speed, the numbers that he's producing are off the chart. It's still an extremely dynamic move. But is there a risk when you push the body too far, it might just snap?
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly, like you're saying, if he quite quickly got very big, your body has to cope and adapt with that as well. So obviously, muscles, joints, and bones all kind of grow and develop at different rates. So quite often you can kind of have muscle development without necessarily the tendon development around it. So sometimes you can kind of cause risks there. With obviously if you don't kind of balance it out as you move into that kind of new body composition. But there's certainly kind of risks with going both ways. Whenever you kind of change your body shape like that, there's a very heavy nutritional demand on it and a very heavy physical demand as well. I mean, to bulk up like that, he would have been putting some serious time into the gym, and it takes that commitment. And obviously, there's going to be fatigue elements from that, which obviously he can't carry into a game and can't carry into tournaments as well. So he's going to have to balance his body size when he can't be in the gym all of that time as well.
So there is a sort of word of warning, isn't there? Like, don't just go into the gym and start trying to bulk up and doing stuff when really, if you don't know what you're doing, this could be quite detrimental to any sort of performance level here, couldn't it?
Yeah, there's real element of striking a balance with it. It's very hard to do that sort of thing well, and we see it all the time, and often we actually see it in the opposite direction. We have kind of athletes in weight management categories like boxers, for example. All your fighters, obviously they've got the weight categories to try and get in, so they try and trim down really quickly, and obviously we get issues with that. But yeah, occasionally we are looking at kind of put size on athletes and get them bigger, or potentially go up a weight category if they're fighters. So it's just trying to manage that really well. And obviously we have a nutritionist. She's a dietitian. She's a registered dietitian. There's a difference as well. So if you are thinking of doing it, have a look for a registered dietitian, as they will be the best ones to advise you on how to do that well and how to make sure you're eating the right things to kind of fuel your body and help it repair after these kind of very damaging sessions, obviously in the gym.
Okay. Right, we got there. Last question. Then you can take a breather. What are your top S&C tips for the average golfer?
I think the biggest one is to have an open mind. I mean, we've talked a little bit around, you didn't realize some of the things that I was going to say about actually you can use it for this or use it for that. And actually, not kind of think of that stereotypical strength training as being in the gym, and keep an open mind as to some of those different aspects that could help you. And also that obviously not everything is going to look like a golf swing. If you step into an S&C session, it's not all going to look like you would expect a golfer's movement patterns to look. So just keep an open mind on that front. And then I suppose it's just mastering the basics. Really listen to your body, and focus in on those areas that you know that you get a little bit of a niggle, or potentially is a little bit of a problem area with you. If it's you're a little bit inconsistent with your rotation or something like that, just master the basics that you can find on that area, and really kind of progress with those. It doesn't have to be crazy or complex or anything. It's just focus on something simple and get really good at it.
All right, awesome. Laura, thank you for your time. I can't thank you enough for joining us and taking the time out to answer the Golfin fans' questions. Just quickly before we leave, if any of the golfers, just mention the website again, if they do want to come and see you guys at the Institute of Sport, what was the website again?
Yeah, it's Derbyshire Institute of Sport.co.uk. So you can find us there. And yeah, there was loads of information on the website. But yeah, it would be great to hear from you.
All right, smashing. And also, if there's any, there might be some young aspiring athletes who are watching, or there might be parents of kids or anything like that. Is it best to just direct them to the website as well? Is that a good port of call for them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got with the website, or we have got kind of all the social medias as well. We've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, Instagram, we've got all of them. So you can find us somewhere on there, just searching Derbyshire Institute of Sport. And yeah, we've got loads of information. We do look after parents a lot of the time. We've got a lot of youngsters on the programme, so we send out a lot of parents' information as well. So
All right,
yeah.
brilliant. Well, thank you again, Laura. Thank you for your time.
Brilliant, no worries.
So there you have it, golfing fans. Laura Wake, Head of Athlete Development for the Derbyshire Institute of Sport. I thought that was a really fantastic interview. She broke down the boundaries, the stigmas of S&C. It's not just about being in the gym, pumping iron and developing big guns. It's about you working with your body, your needs, and most importantly for us as golfers, and as we talked about the average golfer, the club golfer, S&C can help you play the game for longer and pain-free, which sounds fantastic. We want to keep playing the game and enjoying the game as long as we can. I also thought it was amazing to hear her stories of competing in the Commonwealth Games, what it must have felt like, or how I would feel, or any of us would feel. I don't even know if I could compete or function in that sort of environment. So just amazing stories. What an amazing athlete. So thank you, Laura, for coming on and sharing those experiences. For those of you that do want more information about Laura and what the Derbyshire Institute of Sport do, don't forget the website, derbyshireinstituteofsport.co.uk. Of course, as she mentioned, any of you can go and get involved with what they do there. And of course, if you know someone, a young athlete, an aspiring athlete, it would also be worth linking them in with the Institute, the Derbyshire Institute of Sport, because what they do there is world class, and it's one of the most fantastic environments that you can place a young athlete into. Access to people like Laura and of course Dr. Philip Clark from a few weeks ago. So I'd really encourage that. Thank you to Laura for coming on. Over the next few weeks, we will have more Golfin Facebook Live specials, and we are also going to launch the new Golfin Talk podcast. Episode 1 will be with Dr. Richard Bailey. As some of you would have seen a few weeks ago, we actually did a Facebook Live session with Dr. Richard Bailey, but hands up, I mucked up the sound and there's this horrible big echo over it. However, Dr. Richard very kindly said he would come back, and we recorded the first Golfin Talk podcast, and that was brilliant. Lots of fantastic information in there, and some quite controversial information for all you golfers as well. For more information about golfing and everything we do, please feel free to check out the Golfin social channels. You'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And of course, visit the website golfin.club. We will see you soon. Thank you as always for watching. Stay safe, keep playing golf, and happy golfing.